to Data Center Changemakers Sweden, live from Data Center Forum Stockholm. Now it's about powering Sweden. And it is a special day as this is the 10th Data Center Forum in Stockholm. My name is Liselotte Lyngsø. I'm your moderator and your futurist of today. And this is Data Center Changemakers Sweden. Access to energy has become a major concern. The Nordics seems to have plenty of energy, but can Sweden in particular continue to capitalize on this competitive energy advantage? Later today at 4 p.m. we'll take a closer look at one aspect of this puzzle, the grid stabilization. But first I'd like to discuss energy and data centers with Andreas Espeving from Vattenfall. Welcome to you. Cecilia Yertshel from T-Loop. What exactly is the concept of these data energy centers, as you like to call them?
Exactly. So what is a data energy center? Well, I would say it combines of three pillars. So first of all, reduce the energy and make sure that the data center overall is energy efficient. Use fossil-free energy also in the data center. Capture 100% of the excess heat and make reheat use of that. Heating up the building we're located in, or the nearby buildings, or the district heating system. And then the third component is actually giving back to the system, using the spare capacity we have in batteries to actually stabilize the grid.
And then you had a great news already this Monday, I believe, the fact that T-Loop together with Imatic announced TSO Link, which should be able to unlock this potential of data centers contributing to a more powerful grid.
Yes.
Can you explain that as well before we start?
We're thrilled. I'm so here to have Matthias also and Robin, who's actually been working on this project. So I would say applaud for you because you've been managed to solve this. But it was the final component to make sure that we can actually guarantee the uptime for the customers, but still using the spare capacity we have, which we all as data centers have, to stabilize the grid.
Thank you. And Alberto Ravagni from Net Zero Innovation Hub for Data Centers, you have made a unique collaboration between people that are, I guess, competitors. Will you explain a little bit about that, please?
Yes, that's the big strength of the Net Zero Innovation Hub. We bring together competitors. We are a collaborative zone. What we do is we want to accelerate innovation. What we have learned today, I think, and it's not from a futurologist, is that the future is not what it used to be. Data center will not be built in the same way that they are built. Innovation is needed if you want to achieve all the goals. And basically, the question is, how do you bring innovation when you build a data center, which is a gigawatt? The short answer is you don't. You cannot, when you build a data center, you cannot bring in any non-tested innovation. And we are the place where these innovations are tested before going at scale. So we bring together in our main partners are Google, Microsoft, Dataforce, so the operators, large scale, and co-locators. We have also large solution providers, Schneider, Vertiv, Danfoss. And together, even if they are competitors, we are de-risking innovation, meaning we de-risk the offtake, we de-risk the technology, we'll take a look at the regulation, and we create places, we create physical testing facilities where this innovation can be tested before being scaled up.
So moving from science fiction to science fact,
absolutely.
I guess.
Absolutely.
To get a glimpse of this electricity grid of the future, we have spoken to Åke Hoekstra from the Eindhoven University of Technologies in the Netherlands. He's an expert on this energy transition. Let's hear what he has to say.
For the first time in history, we're going to stop burning fossil fuel, biofuel, and we're going to turn to electricity directly. And now, for the first time in history, we're going to be able to store that electricity. And now we have lithium batteries that have become about 15 to 20 times cheaper in the last 20 years. but more importantly, maybe even, last also about 10 times longer than the first batteries. That really is a game changer for example, the electricity grid. Production is increasing exponentially at about 60% per year, and I think it will keep doing that for another 10 years or something, and then we will have a lot of batteries because exponential growth goes very fast. For every doubling, we see the price decreasing by about 26 to 28%, which is, if you know these kind of curves, very dramatic. Basically, what we are seeing with batteries is very similar to what we have seen with solar panels, but it's going even faster. I have extrapolated the trends of the last 10 years until 2100, often extrapolating trends, like I did with solar panels, electric vehicles, batteries, etc., is a much better predictor than our so-called experts. Our energy use in 2100 for data-related usage for data centers will grow with a factor of 50. That's a lot. But at the same time, a computing capacity grows with a factor of 15 million, and our communication capacity grows with a factor of 5 billion. This total amount of energy will be 10% of our energy. What people often don't understand is we have energy aplenty. We get 10,000 times the amount of energy from the sun that we need on average. So the problem is not we're running out of energy. The problem is also not we're running out of raw materials, plenty of that. The problem is we have to figure out a new energy system. Actually, the internet is a very nice example of how this system could work. For example, the border gateway protocol that routers use to basically look around and say, hey, who can transport my package? That sort of dynamism is exactly what we would preferably need in an electricity system. Actually, the people who should listen the most, people at the grid operator, find it very hard to imagine this new system with batteries, and especially people who know something about how the internet became what it is. These are the people who find this very intuitive and are able to immediately place it. And I hope that a lot of people listening will take my message to heart and act on it.
So, interesting stuff. What are your thoughts and comments? I can't help thinking about these Northvolt batteries crashing. But is he too optimistic in terms of the scale of innovation here?
No, I think he's totally to the point. We need to create energy societies rather than just thinking of big grids. I mean, this is also something that the data center industry need to think about here in Sweden. At the moment, we are locating a lot to the north. That's where we need the electricity for the industry. So think about us as an energy system. And
did you like that metaphor of the internet, Alberto?
Yeah.
Do you see that working?
Generically, yes, absolutely. The most important thing for data centers is data centers are seen very often when they come to a city as taking energy and taking space and taking a lot. I think it's very important for data center to give back. There will be probably more than 25 gigawatt of data center in Europe alone in the next years. This is relevant for the grid. And what we have done at the Hub, we have launched a request for innovation, for innovative ways to substitute diesel generators. Now, if we can substitute diesel generators with something which is net zero, then those become assets. They must become part of the grid or supporting the grid, provide grid service and provide flexibility. Then the data center will give back this service exactly like they can give back the heat that they use, and they will become a more active and positive. They will have a positive impact on the community.
Andreas, you're representing Vattenfall. How's Sweden doing compared to the rest of the Nordics in this respect?
But I think it's been a very challenging times. We're talking a lot about permits, access to grid capacity, but I think it has been like that in the last years. We have seen that the industry and new industries like Northvolt you mentioned and green steel and so on, they asked for like 150 terawatt hours, the same as Sweden consume today. And that means that was a congestion over all the permitting, because the grid companies and the Swedish TSO, Svenska Kraftnät, has to operate in a way they have never done before. Because if you add some like a new housing area or something, that's what you have counted with. But when someone comes in with as much consumption as all of Sweden, then you have to redo the whole system. But now, of course, it's coming down. LKAB announced that they are postponing Kiruna, that's like 50 terawatt hours, and so on. And we have seen Northvolt, other projects. I think there will be opportunities now for data centers and the industry, but it's also, we see that data centers is increasing, as he said, but it's maybe going up to 5-7% of the total energy consumption. But in Sweden, that means that maybe up to 10 terawatt hours for data centers. The existing base industry in Sweden is calculated with going from 45 to 130 terawatt hours. So data center has a role in this, but it's on different scale what the industry with new hydrogen dependent and decarbonization and so on industries are doing. It's a much larger amounts needed there. So it's going to be still challenging, but I think there is some air in the system now where we see these changes.
Well, I think you make an important point about giving back, and I think we also have to talk a lot about the untapped assets that we already have in the system. We have that with heat, we had that with the extra grid, with the extra spare capacity we have that can be helped to support the grid. We can also think about how we actually train models and when we do it and so on, so we actually run the data centers and operate them in a way when we have overcapacity. So I think all those things in together, I mean, we need to start thinking not just linear, we need to think it through a circular system and circular economy system.
In terms of the grid balance, we are going to return to that at 4 p.m. But Alberto, you're also talking about changing this, finding some innovation in terms of the diesel backup generators.
Yes.
How close are we to have a complete substitute for that? We heard the other speaker before, he said energy is abundant in the future.
Energy is abundant. And, well, I make a question. If we look about the need for energy, that will not decrease. That's one point of a disagreement with the video.
Okay.
Or many, when we see announcement of NVIDIA, well, the next generation of chip will use, 1/10 or even less, 1/20 of the energy. Well, if NVIDIA comes out today and all the chip would be, 50%, consume 50% of the energy, what would happen? Would the AI growth need half of the energy? No. It would just use more algorithm, and is the quantity of available energy. Is something like the Jevons paradox. It doesn't matter what the efficiency is, we will just do more computing. So in that sense, I think we have to move more careful about, one, how do we reuse the energy that we need, and second, how efficient we are. And the third is how these data centers are integrated with the grid. And about diesel, yes, that's one of the fossil fuel elements that the whole data center industry has declared to get rid of, to substitute. And I think a substitute is available, will be available soon. What does it need, an innovation to become scalable? You need to have a strong market signal. And our partners at Google, Microsoft, they said, they wrote this request for innovation. We say we need 50 megawatt standard, up to 1 gigawatt. The modules must be like this. These are the requirements. Net zero is one of the requirements. And this strong market signal plus the testing at scale, I'm pretty confident that we will have a solution already next year.
That sounds very promising. And talking of this collaboration, and this is a question for all of you, do you think a form of synergy between data centers and energy companies in the future will become compulsory?
Yes.
Yes, for sure. I think collaboration is the key. And as I said, we've talked about energy societies instead. And I mean, also if you start thinking from a circular economy perspective, all that goes back to collaboration. You have to find your partners, understand who you can support, create win-win situations. And if we do that, we can succeed.
Well, I think what you told you have done at T-Loop, I think it's, you have to start like from the design phase, decide what can this data center contribute with. We have seen it from our side for a very long time, but you have the SLAs, and so on. You're very dependent on the customer and their demand and so on. But I think you can do a lot more without interfering with the customer's access to unlimited power and still supply the grid and so on. So I think we're going to see data center also adapting with the limited grid contracts, limitations in grid contract that you have to reduce certain hours or run from your battery for like 4 hours maybe during peak hours sometimes and so on. So I think you will design data centers in a different way so you can meet these demands much higher.
Any final comments, Alberto?
No, absolutely. This one final comment is really collaboration. It's one element that we all three mentioned, and we're very happy. And really, I'm almost surprised how well it works, having competitors, both on the data center side and the solution provider side, cooperating to enable this net zero innovation to become and to grow at scale.
So that would be the winning recipe of the future. It's people working together to create these hubs of innovation. Thank you so much for participating at this Data Center Changemakers.
Thank you.
At 4 o'clock, we'll be back for the third episode, where we'll focus on grid stabilization a bit again and AI. Thank you very much for attending. Let's give them a big hand of applause. Have a change of table here for the second Insights Forum. And Stefan is sitting to the left and Richard to the right. Forum number 2. In May 2024, data centers larger than 500 kilowatt must report on key metrics like floor area, installed power, energy consumption, PUE, temperature set points, waste heat utilization, and renewable energy use. What are the best practices in this? This is exactly what we are delving into, and to answer this question, I have with me Richard May from Sunbird. Welcome to you, and Stefan Frenzel from DME. So, how did the view on sustainable operations change over the recent years?
Want to start, Richard, maybe? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the reality is the change hasn't happened yet, but we know it's coming. We know it's coming.
Yeah.
And the overarching message is to be aware and to be prepared. And ultimately, a lot of these decisions is based on data. And we need to ensure that we have the infrastructure in place to generate the data to answer tomorrow's questions. And we know some of what tomorrow's questions are going to be. But there's plenty. We don't know what they are yet.
So, yeah, as we discussed in our prep calls, and as I shared also here with the audience today, but also previously, I'm a big fan of these digital platforms, yeah, because there is a need, there is a demand now with legislation coming in, giving the boundaries that we need to do these audits and the energy and environmental reporting. Again, we have the experience now in Germany. Yeah, other nations will also come in within the European Union. And as I said also this morning, why not using a DCF tool like yours or others on the market to really do the measuring instead of going to a consultancy company, asking for a lot of money to do that, And there are some tools really living up to this, which is needed to be compliant. Yeah? And if you're not compliant, then of course there are two implications. You need to pay a fine, yeah? And this is also based on the setup in Germany. There's a federal agency following up on this. And of course, what is also more a bigger burden or a negative thing is that the image of the company is also destroyed if you're not really compliant. Yeah?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Richard, what are the key metrics that you have to measure on? What kind of good data do you need really to do this?
So in reality at the moment, measuring big things like PUE, you don't really, it's easy to do. You meter the white space, you meter the grey, you do a calculation, you get PUE. But we know around the corner is coming net zero, carbon reduction targets, energy reduction targets. And ultimately, you can't begin to reduce energy usage until you know who's using it. Sunbird, as a vendor, we've been, our target audience historically has been operations. And the reality is the data doesn't need to be too granular for operations. A feed, B feed, cabinet, breaker, phase. That's enough to ensure a stable data center for operations. But essentially, in the future, we need to start cutting big numbers up into little numbers, and little numbers are apportioned to cost centers, to projects, to scope 3 emissions, to customers. So we need granularity, and we need to be able to split up the infrastructure and appoint that element of carbon, that element of energy to these sometimes business stakeholders as well as your normal data center operational stakeholders. It takes more thought, it takes more infrastructure, and we don't want customers to be buying the wrong meter today for operations when they haven't necessarily thought about tomorrow for ESG and sustainability and these tomorrow's reporting requirements. So at the end of the day, unless you collect data, you've lost it. So first of all, collect it, put it in a system that's open so that it can be read by systems that have yet been procured for ESG head-end and things like that. And then tomorrow, we've got the flexibility of being able to apportion this usage across these stakeholders that are typically business related.
So you need to start harvesting the data already. And what kind of innovative practices do you see data centers using right now in order to do just that?
That's a fair question, because many of the data center providers we know, especially the smaller and let's say the medium-sized ones, they have their tailor-made solutions. Sometimes it's really like an Excel spreadsheet, Again, that's why I'm a big fan of a digital platform supporting this, increasing transparency. And as what I mentioned maybe also this morning or a bit previously, these agencies following up if the company is really compliant, they're focusing first on the big enterprises. And what we also discussed, Richard, as you can remember, let's say these big enterprises are like big oil tanks. They maneuver really, really slow. So if you would like to do, there is a need and the obligation now to do these audits and these reportings. So you better start now thinking about starting the process, how you do this. Yeah. Even if your home country have not really implemented this as a national law, you better start moving now, yeah, because it takes a while until it's procured and implemented. So better start now before it's too late, and then if it's too late, then it's not good. So be proactive in this case. And again, these DCIM tools are just one building block to run a data center site as sustainable. So there are more things like making use of the excess heat, circular economy gear. But I think in the end of the day, it's also another part of the life. You need to measure how to see how good you are or how bad you are in the end of the day. And increasing transparency and increasing trust again in the industry, because many people blaming data center sites to really making use of all the energy and creating all these CO2 emissions. But we are not really communicating, and we are not in good telling people that we're actually doing some good things here. Because our communication is not as good as it could be.
That's it.
You've been living nice and secretly. So looking at the DCIM into the future, how will you help, communicating trust and sustainability. What are going to be the next step? We have now harvested the data, and then what? What are the next steps?
I think a lot of this is about making complex subjects easy to understand.
Yeah.
So one of the issues we have in the industry is that a facilities department understand power. IT people understand power to a lesser extent. Business people understand power to an even less extent. And at the end of the day, power equals heat, equals money, equals CO2, equals accountability for your business unit, for your project, for your customer, and everything else. So a lot of this is about education. We've worked with the likes of Cisco. They're apportioning money and CO2 to projects. They're daring to shut things off when it's not required, rather than this assumption that data centers should remain on 24/7. It's about right-sizing the infrastructure for the demand and daring to shut things down. And it's about just rethinking the way we work, making people accountable. Running a project has implications, making people aware of those implications and having the data to support it. And data comes from infrastructure. It comes from, you know, the ability to have software to report on it, which is obviously a key part of what we do. But, you know, at the moment there's a lot of, you know, ignorance out there, and we're about trying to change that, aren't we, Stefan?
So
Absolutely.
the large companies, they are able to do that, but we have a lot of medium-sized. Do they stand a chance for this education trip, or do we need something else, something smarter maybe?
I mean, yeah, so small companies tend to be much more agile. We bring up large companies because it's time-consuming to change. It's decisions take longer. But ultimately, to change power metering infrastructure, you need to shut things down so you can install it. So this downtime needs to be planned, it needs to be budgeted, and it takes time. Even if you have unlimited budget, you can't solve this problem tomorrow.
Yeah. In the end of the day, of course, you need to have also manpower, yeah, behind that. At least, let's say, even also the smaller and the medium-sized data center side, they need to have one dedicated guy or person, put it this way, who is the ESG officer or sustainability, or you name it, and taking care of that, having we say the hat on, so to speak, taking responsibility. But of course, more people will not help. You need to have a dedicated tool supporting you and also providing these reports in a dedicated, also possibly a tailor-made dashboard. You can also then just easily extract those reports needed to be compliant, and also needed to be as open and transparent as possible, because this will also secure the future, the customers coming to you. Because we can see in the industry many customers asking also, already starting, not about pricing anymore.
Absolutely.
It's still, it's important, but they're also asking what you do with your CO2 emissions, what you do with Scope 3. Are you doing anything? Because they will also only go to a data center site who is compliant in that, and who is really acting as a role model, being green and sustainable. This is what we can see.
Absolutely.
So it's a unique selling point.
It's not necessarily unique, but it's, you know, the reality is that if you look on LinkedIn, there's no end of jobs with sustainability in the title and ESG in the title, and these people are currently being recruited. One of the first doors they will knock on is the data center manager, because it's the biggest consumer of power and the biggest, unless you're in manufacturing, it's the biggest generator of CO2 in the business. They're going to be asking difficult questions, and do you have any answers? Or what is your plan to get the answers? And if you're caught unawares, you're in an awkward situation.
Agree, it's not good. So you need to be prepared, and again, we have these tools out there, and you guys out there are more than welcome. I'm happy to support you, because they're different tools with different strengths and different weaknesses. And of course, it's depending really on what you do as a data center provider, what kind of applications are running at your side, and what is your target and objective to get out of this. Yeah.
So last great advice to the companies out there.
Richard?
Come and talk to the experts. come and meet our customers who are already doing it. Come and join a very active user community and learn.
And if I may add, Richard, here basically is do not wait until it's too late. Really start now, because it takes a while before you have the suitable solution in place, before it's really someone really supporting you here, and if all the processes are in place. So again, if you need to rush with this, then you make mistakes, and this is doing the opposite. Instead of supporting you, getting the figures out you need. We can only recommend do not wait. And the tendency is often there, and Richard possibly can confirm, if you need to procure, let's say, a hardware, a server, there's a need for it, yeah? Because you need to have a better performing, a faster CPU, GPU, less energy consumption is needed. If you need to buy a software, it's easy to postpone this. Yeah, because the business need may be not as burning on your agenda, but here I think this is a big mistake.
So moving from nice to have to need to have,
yeah,
and being proactive.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Let's give them a big hand of applause.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.